Well, I'm happy to be leading this very informative conversation about what it takes to make a company a great place to work, and specifically the benefits that you need to succeed. Of course, companies want to ensure that they have healthy moms and strong babies. And I think that this conversation will help companies ensure that they are doing just that. I want to introduce our fantastic panelists for this discussion. Helen Nilsson, people consultant with Google, Tara Miko Ballantyne, the founder of the Kindred Hub, and also April Daniels Hassar, managing editor at Romper, a digital resource for parents. Ladies, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having us.
So let's talk about the benefits that we need to succeed in the workplace. Helen, I'm going to start with you. What type of policies should women look for when they're thinking about a long-term career and potentially starting a family one day? I mean, from the get-go with that interview.
Yeah, it's a difficult space to navigate. I just want to hold space for that. Being potentially in an interview scenario, as you've suggested, or even as an employee, it's a careful and a sensitive topic. As a general statement, I think that women need to look for benefits and support from their employer that really supports them in all facets of life. When one starts a role, either entry level or, as we call them at Google, nooglers, kind of fresh into our ranks, that may not reflect your station in life, as your career grows at that employer. And so definitely you need to look at policies and benefits that support you as you enter the door day one in orientation and as you grow your career for the long term at that employer. And then I'll just kind of double click more specifically, and this won't be a comprehensive list at all, but maternity leave would be amazing as a set aside leave and not kind of combined leave of personal leave and short-term disability. There are some of those factors in play, but you don't need to kind of dip into other forms of leave in order to have a baby. That should be a dedicated set aside leave. There should be wellness benefits as well. There are certain things that we experience as women and mothers, and we need to be supported in kind of all facets of that as well. So healthy wellness benefits, access to therapy, to massages, to meditation apps, you name it. As creative as a workplace can be, those are the opportunities for women to fully experience kind of all of what that workplace has to contribute, and in turn be strong contributors, right back.
And that may be things that you're not even thinking about initially when you start at that workplace. If you're not ready to start your family yet, you may not have thought about that, but it should be something that you're thinking about if you think that might be the plan down the line.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. I want to go to you, Tara. Tell me a little bit about the Kindred Hub and the reason why you founded this.
So I'm actually going to dovetail off of Helen and what she's saying about, all of these things you need to be looking for. But I think the problem is they're not readily available. You really have to look and dig for them. And so I saw from my personal experience of being an entrepreneur and being a mom that there needs to be a better way. So I founded Kindred Hub, which is a certification that will highlight and celebrate companies that are doing all those things and offering all those things that Helen is saying. I feel like we're really good at highlighting the external, the external give, but what we don't talk about is the internal and how that's going to impact the employee and ultimately bringing their whole self to work. So the certification that I've created will allow employees, mom, to know what they're getting into bed with before they sign those papers, before they start day one. And honestly, that's good for everybody involved. And my goal is by setting this benchmark and the standard that does not exist, I'm hoping through social pressure, we can show that it's profitable to put your the people that make your company profitable first, allowing them to bring their whole self to work. So And it literally came out of me dropping my daughter off at preschool, and my daughter asking me about, mommy, where are you going today? And I'm like, I gotta go to work today, baby. I gotta go to work. And I'm whispering this. And what I want to say is, I'm going to work. And I love it. And I love being a mom, and I love going to work. And these two things can go together, but instead moms go to work and we pretend we're not moms, and we come home and we pretend we don't work. And that idea of work-life balance doesn't work. Something is always losing. And I believe that we can have work-life integration. So I'm not only passionate about the Kindred Hub and what we're doing with our first certification, Work-Life Visionary, but it is needed, and it is time, and the time is now. We cannot continue to have human casualty for profitability.
Work-life integration, that is so important. That's really kind of what this discussion is all about, how we can do a better job at that. You mentioned having programs that are good for everyone involved, and that really leads me to my next question, because these programs, these policies really can impact a mom or a family's overall health. And I want to talk a little bit more about that now. April, how do you think programs and policies can help improve the overall health of women and parents?
Oh, I mean, just tremendously. I think, one of the things that we're seeing with the pandemic is it's really highlighting how important good benefits and good companies are for families and for moms. 856,000 women left the workforce in September, and that those weren't all moms, but that's still 4 times as many as men left. And one of the major factors in that exodus, and that's just in 1 month, is childcare, and flexibility is another major issue. So if you don't have support at work, forget about your career, you might not be able to work at all, and you might not be able to feed your kids or pay your rent. I think something like, over 65% of moms are or primary breadwinners. And for Black women, it's higher than that. It's like 70% of Black moms are really responsible for bringing home the money. So we absolutely need workplaces that support us and that offer us flexibility and offer us understanding. And what the pandemic has done has just really shown a spotlight on a situation that has always existed and needs to get better.
Yeah, and something that we definitely need to focus on and continue to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Helen, I want to ask you, with your work in HR background and in employment work, how do you believe that a company's policies and programs can help improve a family's overall health?
Yeah, listen, so, an employer's brand is something that, folks in the marketing department don't get to decide, in the sense that, corporate branding is related to corporate reputation. It is something that is a response and an outcome of policies, of what people think about working there, what people say about working there, word of mouth. Reputation is spread in different ways. The value proposition that company is presenting to the entire family. And so when you think about, overall impact on a family's wellness, let's just take a mother and a working mother. In this instance, that's the nucleus of the family. Working moms or moms in general really hold things together. And so, as a mom has a cold, the family has the flu. And so to support, a mother and to have policies and benefits that support her in all that she's experiencing outside of the work place and inside of the workplace is extremely important. And so, the causal relationship is it's obvious, and I also think in the way that supporting a mom and her well-being and wellness in all facets of her life outside the job also has a causal relationship and impact on her productivity, in the job as well. And so, it's a win-win scenario, one, to listen to moms and women, because it impacts, our everyday environment.
Yeah, definitely. Great answer. Employers should want to support and take care of those moms and parents every step of the way. Let's talk now to employees. What if you are thinking about starting a family? What's the first thing that you should do to learn about your internal company policies? Without maybe sounding an alarm, many women say they don't want to be mommy tracked, but going back to our first question, it's very important to find out about those internal policies. So Tara, I'm gonna ask you about that. If a mom or a woman is thinking about starting a family, what should she do first?
I think that is a huge problem, is that as you're, getting ready to start a family and you're trying to figure out what's available at work, you can put a target on your back, if you will, that you're thinking about this. And so unfortunately, when, moms start or women who want to be moms start asking these questions, it really, unfortunately, negatively impacts their career path, where alternatively for men, they actually see an increase in promotions and salary, and a man gets a high five and a thumbs up, and a woman is pushed out. So unfortunately, it's a slippery slope to actually start having that conversation with your employer, and instead of being seen as proactive and working with you, and this is a good thing, and family, because where we work, we bring our whole self. It's a part of our family. The opposite can happen. So again, that's kind of, therein lies the huge problem of how do we reverse that conversation? How do we see the mom as a positive? Moms are entrepreneurs every single day, juggling and highlighting and doing all this stuff. So unfortunately, I don't think there's a great answer for how you have that conversation. I think I would start by asking other women in the workforce that have had children and ask about their experience. I think you need to go to your coworkers before you potentially go to your boss.
Now, what about going though first to, someone like Helen in HR, finding out your company policies? Helen, would you say that's maybe the most important first step before you even have that conversation with coworkers or your manager, finding out the policies in place that are going to help me?
Yeah. In any scenario, when you're considering, work impact, it's helpful to do some homework and some due diligence and find out, what you don't know, right? What to expect when you might be thinking about expecting. And so it's extremely important to understand what resources are available. It's a, no judgment, confidential conversation that you'd have with HR, reviewed as trusted advisors. And so we have a duty and a responsibility to our employees not to, run and, tell their business, so to speak. And so, yeah, there are conversations, exploratory or informational conversations I have all the time with women and with fathers as well, expecting fathers or men who are thinking about expanding their home, their families. So it makes perfect sense. And then, there are also self-service tools that folks can use in their job, where be it an employee handbook. Some of that information as a starter may be there. There are employer kind of intranet or web-based access points where they can go in and look for information and just do some keyword searches. And then I would say, either starting with a conversation with HR or starting that kind of search on your own and finishing up with HR is a great start.
April, anything that you would like to add to that for, men or women thinking about starting their family, the first steps that they should take when it comes to their company's policies?
Yes, well, I mean, I absolutely love that we brought up men and fathers, because this is a conversation that absolutely men need to be having. It's it only goes so far for us to be having these conversations. We need dads and potential dads to care about this as much as we do. And I would also say it's important for women who are not parents also to be having these conversations. It's not something to just start thinking about once you flip the switch and kind of start thinking about having a family, or you find yourself about to have a family. And I think that one of the ways that people can kind of start these conversations generally is within a broader lens of work-life balance, of flexibility, of things that make life better for every employee and your entire team, whether or not they have kids. Everybody needs to be able to leave work for an emergency, or to, take time off to be a caregiver. That doesn't always mean being a parent. So if you look at the broader existence of work and life and home, if we can think about it as a holistic endeavor that everybody needs to buy into, then then I think there's more hope for progress.
And
I
also,
would just quickly add that there are some kind of green flags, so to speak, if you're kind of starting to think about the process and you're wondering what, how your company may approach the idea of you becoming a parent. If you have, is there a mother's room in your building? Not every city requires that you have, that a company has one. So that's a good thing to look for. If you're scrolling through your benefits and the benefits that are offered, and you see something in there that's about family planning or fertility, those are kind of like a notch above just the standard baseline benefits. If there's anything in there that's really inclusive, where it mentions looking into adoption, or sort of, there's some clues you can see that your company may, or a potential company may be caring a lot about this issue.
Yeah, all great points to bring up. Green flags. I like that. Just
Yeah.
additional points to keep in mind if you are starting to think about growing your family, things you may have not thought about before. Let's get back to, if you are someone who is pregnant or about to announce your pregnancy, and you find out your workplace doesn't have those policies in place to ensure that you have a safe and healthy pregnancy, or the kind of maternity leave that you may need to take, or, if you have a high risk pregnancy and you may be going to multiple doctor's appointments, where do you turn then? Helen, I'll steer that question toward you. What could that person do if they find out that they're not covered under their company's policies?
Yeah, that's a really interesting place to be in, and it really depends on a couple of things. I'm going to launch in as like problem solver, to be honest, but a couple of things where they can kind of influence from their seat. So if it's around the time, when there's, open enrollment, or it's within the plan year, just to be super specific, where things have been kind of locked in, then that's going to be fairly difficult. Depending on the size of the company and the size of the, I'll just say, constituency that may encounter this problem, there may be a strength in numbers play where they can influence, plan decisions or benefits decisions for the following plan year. There might also be a play where they can receive additive benefits in order to kind of bridge the gap. So I'm thinking of, a secondary kind of insurance. They may have to go on the private market in order to do that. But that's a conversation also about where the employer is falling short and where the employee has to bridge that gap, and whether that's a fair and equitable play based on someone's gender. I'm going into other uncharted territories and kind of bringing that up, but that would get an employer's attention. And although I mentioned strength in numbers, it only takes one. It really does. I had mentioned this in prior conversations, but because an employer doesn't offer it day one or day need, the day that you need it, doesn't mean that that's not within their purview or power to get it for you. And so I think an employee needs to feel empowered to, to ask for what they need and then work through that answer as a partner to solve fully for the employer and the employee as well. And so, just as an employee is experiencing something, when an employer was, discussing their benefits and the salesperson came by and and they were determining, what's the best package to offer employees, this may not have been something that they thought of either, right? Like, we're all kind of evolving to some degree on the spot. So, extend a little grace and space to understand, what you can do from your seat, what the employer is willing to do to kind of meet you halfway, I think is a great starting point.
Tara, anything to add to that? What potential parents could do if they find out that their companies don't have the policies in place that they're needing?
I would add that it's just really important to advocate for yourself. I think that we hear a lot about going through pregnancy and, the doctors and asking questions and advocating yourself from a medical perspective. I think it's really important to also realize you have to advocate yourself from an employment perspective. And to what Helen was saying, I think that, asking for I would rather ask for something than wonder, because if you didn't have it, then you still don't have it. But what if you could have it? And I think it's easier to advocate for yourself at the business place that you're at, which you've potentially worked there for a couple years. You've got some track record. They know the type of employee that you are. And so you've got some street credit behind you, if you will, as you're advocating for yourself, than trying to start over and go somewhere else. And, I think that is a huge thing about being a mom in all aspects is your best defense is yourself. Like, be your own advocate, be your own fan, and believe in yourself. I think that is one of the biggest things that, as you step into being a mom, that's that unsung hero cape that you have to put on. And it's an additional part of your role that you're going to receive.
April, any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that cape, whether we want it or not, please take my cape. No, you gotta have it. Doing research is also something that you start doing as soon as you think about becoming a parent or through the whole process. And I think that skill can come into be really helpful and come into play here. If you come to HR, why not talk to some friends who maybe have a great policy at the company where they work, or there's a whole extra vendor that their company works with that does family planning and fertility options. Bring them some potential resources. Solutions, ready-made solutions can be a helpful thing to have in your back pocket as a conversation starter.
Just to recap for those watching at home, very important from the get-go, maybe day one of your job, to look at the benefits. What kind of support will you get at this company? Also, how you will be able to implement that work-life integration, and that corporate reputation can come from its policies and programs. So employers really should be paying close attention to what kind of programs they have in place. And also the importance of bringing dads into the conversation as well, and that they are being included when it comes to those policies and programs. And again, just making sure that the policies in place, do your research, and advocate for yourself. That is so important. Ladies, thank you so much for your participation, your insight, and making this such an informative conversation. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much.
This was fun.